Hey guys, welcome to the Scarred Thumb Podcast. I'm going to start with an apology. I'm a little late, but I'm going to apologize for starting off with Matt Walsh here.
At least if you were born at any point prior to the 1990s, might be hard to believe.
Let's turn this
By revenue, the gaming industry is bigger than both the movie industry and the music industry combined. And for the past several years, it hasn't been especially close. The difference is consistently more than $100 billion per year. So video games are a massive market, one that's mostly targeted at young people, of course. But despite those numbers, for the most part, the games industry has avoided mainstream scrutiny. You'll see far more discussion about, say, Sydney Sweeney or Taylor Swift than you'll ever see about prominent video game voice actors and directors who pretty much no one knows anything about. Everyone's heard of Lionsgate or Paramount, but almost no one's heard of studios like Don't Nod Entertainment, for example. And that's significant because
I haven't heard of them either.
These no-name studios are behind the single most coordinated effort to indoctrinate millions of children through entertainment. That's
millions of children. Good old Matt Walsh here. Yep, he's decided to get in. He got some criticism from video game players because he decided to sort of get into this Gamergate type of thing, cover Sweet Baby. And you see leftists use the term like women a lot to try and it's almost like a sort of like moral shield. Like, we need to protect women. Women are being threatened. It's supposed to it's a very manipulative tactic to try and get you to be on their side. Because there's two things society protects, and it's women and it's children. And they're he's basically, these left-wing, Gamergate type of people, they'll say women journalists are being attacked. Female professionals are being attacked by these men. And that's, just sort of like to instinctively get you to be like, oh my gosh, we got to do something. For Matt Walsh and a lot of the right wing, it'll be children. Children are being indoctrinated. They're going after your children. We need regulation, essentially. Or we need something. We need to protect the children. And, the left wing will use it too. But these are just common manipulation tactics to sort of get you to support their cause. Because who doesn't want to protect women? Who doesn't want to protect children? You'd have to be evil not to, right? And that's how they get you. That's exactly how they get you. Matt Walsh here, covering Gamergate. I don't know if I want to go after how much I want to cover this. Matt Walsh here. Because he doesn't say anything particularly interesting about this. He just brings up, I think one of the things is he brings up Life is Strange, which I thought was kind of a weird thing to go after. Like, Suicide Squad, I get it's it's a male IP, but yeah, it's not even loading. X Video, by the way, sucks. If anyone you were wondering, I hate X Video. But this is the topic I want to go into today. It is the gaming grift. We talked last time about Gamergate 2.0, Sweet Baby, but underneath the surface, people hate games journalists. They're obviously biased, but underneath it, there is a sinister layer that kind of help enable these games journalists by providing them really bad science to back their articles up. And they're making bank off of government grants. The main thing I was trying to get at, but he is fortunately can't find it here, is he was talking, was really interesting. He was talking about how he used to do work about, women's issues. And basically, he was, invited to all sorts of press dinners. He, a lot of different stuff. I think he used to work for some sort of organization. And basically, I'm trying to remember, he got all sorts of fame. He was, a darling on Capitol Hill. He was born in political science, a supporter of second-rate feminist. Oh, he was stirred on the New York board of the National Organization for Women. And that's the thing he was. and he sort of advocated for gender liberation movement. And then he kind of started. Then he sort of saw like, hey, women are kind of catching up in education, or they're in fact doing better. And then he started kind of moving to doing books about men, like The Myth of Male Power, why men are the way they are. Kind of sort of like books that focused on men more and their issues. And all of a sudden, he found that nobody on Capitol Hill wanted to hear about it. Nobody wanted to form any sort of councils to help men. It was sort of the support dried up when he stopped talking about women's issues. And this is part of the sort of grift that comes into play, is that no one really cares. Society doesn't really care about men in general. All this talk about male power and how male dominate, but when it comes to the mechanisms of government, and like the law, it definitely skews towards protecting women and children. So we'll have stuff like this. You can make a lot of money through grants, government support, but it needs to be focused on specific groups, and those groups are not men. So this is from The Hill by, this is an opinion contributor, Rena Zolo Rosenblatt. After years of paralysis, the U.S. and European Union have been moving to regulate social platforms, tentative steps of the Digital Services Act. But there's one platform, guys, that they haven't been focusing on, and that is online games. They should be part of the regulatory discussion. We got to regulate these games. Discussion of harms of gaming is focused on fears about content of the games themselves, social environment of the games, posing significant threat to players' safety and well-being. Exposure to hateful speech is routine. I also find it so funny, doxing, exposing private information, that these journalists are talking about doxing. the biggest contributors of doxing out of anyone is crying about doxing. Physical threats are also common. Has someone physically threatened you recently in an online game? Let me know. I'd like to see that. Or, something that you would take seriously. And of course, toxic gamer culture. Disseminate hateful ideologies. And there's just I don't know, it's a fat, just government fat that is around this idea of the toxic gamer, which is men. Let's be fair. Men, when they say toxic gamers culture, they don't use gendered words, but we know exactly what it is. Of course, they'll do this thing where, again, they bring up really isolated incidences where it's Christchurch massacre. And this is literally like the same stuff as the Jack Thompson stuff of the 90s, where it's like he played Counter-Strike. That shooter played Counter-Strike. Oh, it's a robot. Killed 10 people. Probably wouldn't be a nationalist. Noted that he probably wouldn't be if it weren't for Blood and Irons on Roblox, a popular game. Yeah, it was Roblox that turned you into a shooter, not your parents. The power to, and then talk more about this stuff. Those basically calls to regulate these things more, which I assume will essentially come down to more invasive surveillance. Is really what the case is. But then we go over to we gotta get into everyone's favorite thing, the ADL. Of course, the king of grifters, right here, the ADL, because you got to have of course, have some women. Look out, they're a danger. Hate and harassment in gaming is now so pervasive, it's become a norm for many players. Oh my God. It's just normal. Just normal. It's so weird how they talk about this. Like, no one will talk this about driving. Like, someone cut me off. I've been harassed. But which, hey, that's what happens when you go out into the world and interact with other people. Not all interactions are good. But again, we won't have the ADL is not going to talk about this because it's not it's too relatable. Like if it were to relate this to driving, someone cutting you off, someone not letting you in, you putting on your blinker, and then someone speeding up to cut you off, that won't be considered hate or harassment. But the equivalent of this in video games, where somebody hey, you suck or something like that, random people, though there are studies on road rage, so maybe, but not in the same way. But my bad metaphors aside, let's just go into this and then talk about countering extreme. And when they talk about extremism, it's always interesting to note that it's always right-wing extremism that they talk about. It's never left-wing extremism. It's always focused on anti-Semitism, racism, misogyny, homophobia, all this stuff. So it's the government giving out funding to left-wing professors to do research about right-wing extremism or extremism in gaming, and then sort of focusing that to give stuff to journalists and news organizations, which get presented as actual science, which is when it's really just a bunch of crappy surveys, and then tell it how hate is spreading. Hate is becoming more and more common every day. And basically free advertising for the Democrats. Hate is a no game. Look out. They got these statistics. 3 in 4 teens and preteens experience harassment. Oh no. They want to define harassment, what it is in hard terms. We're the most harassed. Women in black or African American were the most harassed because of their identity for the first time since 2019. Oh my God. And then a bunch of statistics. And then the adult teens are spending less on games due to harassment they face. And it's so funny. There's another thing I'll go into. They got people spend less on games they find toxic. There's a real cost to this. And then essentially the question they ask is, do you spend money on a game? How much money do you spend on a game that you don't find toxic? And then last, how much money do you spend on a game that you do find toxic? So it's how much money do you spend on a game you like versus a game you hate? And surprisingly, you'll find the result is that the game they like or the game that they don't find toxic is they in fact spend more. Who would have thought? And is this an accurate way to get real information? Probably not. The question is moronic. Hey, Jack, how's it going? And then they'll go into oh, look at this. A bunch of, just got to mention Jews because they, oh, look at all these scary statistics. We got to get more money. Congress is showing concern. We need Congress. We need all of it. We'll find that all of it leads to, we need a study. Last month, we further pressed 7 efforts to address extreme, urging Attorney General Garland of the U.S. Homeland Security to pay attention to these threats. And then, Ms. Representative Tehran offered an amendment to the National Defense Authorization Act, which called for a commission. We need a commission to a study that connects online multiplayer games and extremism. We need a commission. We need a study that's going to prove right-wing extremists are hanging out in video games. We got to find them. They're there. We know they're there. We just need to spend some money to find them, and further feed the grifting machine of government spending. Everybody needs a little cut of their fat